Hey, Jared here, and today I'm going to give you the blueprint on how to grow your ecom brand. Now, this is going to be extremely high level to get the foundations, but I'm going to give you 2 levels on how to accomplish this. So what I always harp on first and foremost is the financial foundation. If you don't have that financial foundation in place, then you are just completely flying blind. Okay, this is going to be really overly simplistic. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, but you'll understand where I am coming from when I dig into this. So as I'm going back to the financial foundation of your D2C brand, we need to understand the KPIs, the metrics, the margins that you currently have. And I'm going to give you some of the benchmarks that you should have in place. So first and foremost, obviously we're starting with the top level revenue, right? If you don't know these numbers, then level 2 is not going to matter. Like this needs to be, you need to have a thorough understanding of the profitability and the metrics and the margins that are built into your business. And if any of these are out of whack, I'm going to show you how you can kind of navigate and how to look for what areas that you need to focus on. So first and foremost, we are looking at our top line revenue. This is just sales that are coming in. You know, if you're doing any wholesale, you're going to have invoices that you send out, you're going to have some accounts receivable, but this is just really sales coming in, utilizing Shopify. Yeah, you might have a few days delay in merchant deposits, but overall, this is your sales. And then we have your cost of goods sold. A lot of times people will roll into their cost of goods sold like shipping and merchant fees, but that's not what, literally it's your cost of goods sold. So this is the cost of your product that is associated with $100,000 sales volume here. So for D2C brands, we want this to be 20% or better. Now, that's not the case for all brands, right? Depending on the product that you sell. But first and foremost, we can just play with that number here, right? So if all of these are all the same, and I'll get to these, but let's say that you have 40% COGS. Now you're at negative if all of these hold true in terms of net operating income. So you can play with these from a high level, but just understanding your numbers. So this is where everything is going to start, because for every product you sell, you're going to have a cost of goods associated with that. Even if your revenue is 100,000, your gross profit's going to be 80,000. Right? I mean, you could make this 17, whatever you want, but this is a benchmark of what we would like it to be, 20% or better. Now, again, if you're close to this, can you go back to the manufacturer? We have the tariffs and all of that coming. So again, you're probably already needing to do that. But cost of goods isn't just the cost of the products that are associated with sales. I mean, it is, but in order to improve this, can you create more bundles? Can you create different aspects of bundling products together that will actually improve this margin selling at volume? So again, there's a lot of areas that we can potentially improve this, but you have to understand where you're coming from. That's your cost of goods. And then how we have this broken down, again, these are our high level categories. So revenue, cost of goods, this gives your gross profit, gross margin, which is really what your gross profit is going to pay for everything else that is below this line. And so advertising and marketing. So think of your Meta, your Google, other aspects, affiliates. Again, here I have pegged that at 35%. I've seen this range depending on your customer lifetime value. This can range up to 50, 55%. I've seen it up to get 60%, just depending on what your business can sustain. But a good benchmark is anywhere from 30 to 40% here. So, I pegged it at 35%. Your shipping fees, I put 12%. This should be anywhere from 10 to 12%. Now I'm talking about US companies. Canadian companies are different. The shipping is much more expensive there. But US D2C brands, you need to get this down to somewhere between 10 and 12%. And then merchant fees they are what they are, right? So I'm pegging this, they're usually between 3 and 4%. So I'm pegging it at 3.5%. But you can look at these. Let me highlight these really quick. So these are the higher level categories. So instead of looking at the full P&L, we can take these categories and fully understand what's happening. So when we look at your gross profit, this is what's left after your COGS. And then we have all of these other selling expenditures, which is about 50,000. So as we're looking at this, I added, your total selling expenditures. So for that month, say you have 100,000 in revenue, these percentages are all holding up. Your total selling, so that's ads, shipping, merchant fees, is about 50,000. So we deduct that from this 80,000, and that's your contribution profit. So contribution profit, and we get into this in unit economics, by product, but this 29,500 is what you have left to cover your overhead. So this is your G&A. So your contribution profit. So that's pretty much all of your variable expenditures, and this includes your ads and marketing of what's left to cover your overhead. So think of your G&A as your rent, your payroll, software subscriptions, cell phones, computers, all of of that, right? This is just all of your overhead. And so typically what we want, because we're in D2C, this has to stay lean as possible. This is where we make efficiencies of being an online brand, right? Because we shouldn't have that much overhead. So this is even pushing the limit of what I would like to see at 100,000 brand, but this is for informational purposes. So at 20%, we're at 20,000. So you can see from these percentages that we're at a 10% net operating income. Now this is profitability from your operations, but without getting into full details, like look how simple this is. This is literally your profit and loss statement summed up, truncated. But you can look at this instead of going cross-eyed with a profit and loss statement. If you knew these higher level categories, and let's say, this was at 23%, ads and marketing was 40%. For some reason, this pushed up to 13%, right? Now you're pretty much break even, 1% not operating income. But you can come back to each of these metrics and say, okay, how can we improve our cost of goods? Can we gain 2% out of that? Let's get to 21%. Ads and marketing, how can we get more efficient here? Let's get that down to 30, right? And you can start just really picking out the areas that you need to focus on for your brand. Any successful D2C brand needs to understand their financials. This is the report card for your business. This is going to tell you how you're performing, which is on your profit and loss. Again, this is overly simplified, but look how simple this is when you can run what if scenarios and play with these numbers and see the impact that'll have on your business. So the blueprint for that is understanding the margins and KPIs and understanding the benchmarks. So again, when I'm pegging benchmarks, 35, 12, 20%, but this should really be 15. Now we're at 15% profitability, but if we keep it 20, this is the minimum of what we want to get to. We want to have the brand at 10% net operating income as quickly as possible, and then we can start growing from there, because there's other expenditures that don't show up on the profit and loss statement that are going to eat away at cash, right? When you have to reorder inventory, when you have to do different aspects, potentially distributions, owner distributions don't show up here. So if we can get this to continue to grow, we can chip away. So if you want to add 3% in net operating income, what areas can we get more efficient above that? That's it, right? I know this is very simple, but you need to understand this is the first aspect of the blueprint. This is the foundational aspect. All right, let's get to level 2. So I'm going to come over here too, and this is going to be spread out. Let's make this a little bit smaller. All right, so there's kind of a lot going on here, but really it's simplistic. So this is just an example of like one customer. Now you would play this out by how many first-time customers you'd have coming through the cohort. But the level 2, when you can really gain scalability within your business, is understanding CAC to customer lifetime value, not just customer lifetime value, but your contribution margin. Okay. And so I'm going to give you a quick example here. I was the CFO at a golf brand when I first got into the e-com space, and this was over 10 years ago. But when I first came in, we were doing about 4 million in revenue. And after 4 years, we had scaled to doing 43 million in top line revenue. And the way that we were able to do that is basically what I'm going to show you right here. Is we understood our metrics. Now, again, we understood our cash flow. We knew how hard we could push, but this right here, we understood how far we could go out before we had to break even on our customer acquisition. So from the high level, we're looking at $50, let's just say $50 AOV. And the way that I calculated your customer lifetime value, I just straight line projected it by month, which, it's not always the case, but this is for informational purposes only and for example. But when we get out to month 12, we're at 150. So we're saying we're going from 50, our customer lifetime value is 150. And now I know some brands, the customer lifetime value just doesn't grow like this. And if it doesn't, then there's different strategies to deploy that you have to be profitable on the first time acquisition. That can be a scary place to live. I have another video on that, but that's not for this one. Okay, so I just straight line project that month over month, 10.5% growth, and that gets to 150. Now, let's just say our customer acquisition cost is $40. Okay, so you're thinking, oh, cool, we made $10 because AOV is 50, CAC is 40, we're good. The problem is with every one of these sales, or this particular customer, we go back to our financial foundation and we understand these percentages, and that's why they become so important. And actually, we should mimic, so at 100,000, 35%, this CAC should be 35. So let's play that. There we go. So that makes sense. That coincides with everything that we're seeing on that other sheet, right? Okay, so this sheet is completely mimicking what we have on our truncated P&L. And that's why it's so important to know these numbers, because you can just plug them in. So average order value, $50. We spent $35 to acquire this customer. Now we have COGS of 20%. We have shipping of 12%. We have merchant fees of 3.5%. These expenditures, these three, cost of goods, shipping, and merchant fees, are going to be an expense that's associated with every single purchase through your brand if you are solely direct to consumer. Now, if you're wholesale, if you've got other partners, outlays of sales channels, then that would be a little bit different, but we're strictly talking, you have a Shopify store, you're selling products. So these are going to be an expense associated with every single sale. So we're taking these percentages from a high level. So we know on this $50, we're paying $10. There's $10 cost of goods. Shipping is going to be about $6 and our merchant fee is going to be at $2. So when we take this $50, we subtract out, I'll show you the formula. We're subtracting out our customer acquisition cost and we're subtracting out these other expenditures. We're actually at a net loss of, we've lost money to acquire this customer. Now, if you don't have your customer lifetime value doesn't grow through time, this is going to be extremely detrimental to your business. If you don't have that kind of customer lifetime value growth, then you have to be profitable first time acquisition and you might think you are here and you're actually not. So that'd be detrimental. But when we understand our customer lifetime value through time and we understand the growth, when we take this $50, we spent $35. We know the next month that this customer is going to grow by 10.5%. So it's going to be worth $55 here. And again, this is illustration purposes only because this is cumulative, right? It's stacking these profit numbers. It's stacking these expenditures. But we understand now that we pretty much break even in month 2. So we take a step back. We understand, one, do we have the inventory to supply the growth or the continued repurchase rate of these customers? And 2, do we have the cash flow to support it? So again, that's going into another aspect of the blueprint. But from a high level, you want to understand how long is it going to take me to break even to acquire these customers and how many customers do I need, right? I'm not showing you that right now in terms of the volume of customers and the returning customer rate and all that. I'm simply showing you a simple model that you must understand to grow your e-com brand. So if we were to take this and say, yeah, we can actually go out 4 months, what should our CAC target be? Is that 45? Right there. So now we can spend $45 to acquire customers. Now, when you start playing with this CAC target and you increase your customer acquisition costs, this should increase the volume of first-time customers. If it doesn't, then it's really not worth doing that. You want to find that happy medium of what's the maximum amount of first-time customers I can afford and keep that marketing efficiency rolling there as long as possible. And if you're still holding that CAC at say 45 and you're going from 1,000 customers to 900 to 800, then you need to think about copy. Is there ad fatigue, all of those different things. But all this is showing us is how aggressive we can get and the true profitability of customer cohorts through time. But you can't get to this point without understanding your margins and your percentages here. This is the foundation. And then you take it up a notch and you get to level 2 when you start understanding this, when you start understanding how aggressive you can get in your business niche. If you can go 6 months before you break even, you can spend more to acquire customers, you are going to win. Whoever can spend the most to acquire customers is going to win. So you need to understand this aspect of at what point do you break even. Now, again, this is very simplified, but this is how simple it can be. I can literally send you this sheet. You can plug in your numbers and you can understand at what point you should be breaking even with the cohorts that you're acquiring on a monthly basis, right? And so if you wanted to get really aggressive, you could say, well, what if we spent 60? Well, now we're going 8 months before we broke even. Is that good? Is it bad? Do you have the cash flow to support that? Do you have the inventory to support that? Could be a great thing. Could be detrimental to your business. So there's the other aspects that you need to bring into this. But if you understand this piece right here, then you can start working your way backwards and making those decisions. Most D2C brand owners don't understand this piece right here. At what point do they break even? Because mostly what they're looking at is just the customer lifetime value and not all of these. So let's take this back to 35. What was on our original sheet? We're losing money the first month, but we're breaking even month 2. And you can see that we are profitable through time. Again, this is cumulative. But what if all you knew was your average order value, your CAC, and your customer lifetime value? Let's say we removed all these. Look at how profitable you would think you were. You would think that you were profitable month 1, and it's just not reality. So you have to understand the variable expenditures that go into each of these sales for your D2C brand. Again, this is a very simplified template, but all I wanted for you to gain from this video is how simple it actually can be to plug in numbers. Now, when we start really getting into Oh my gosh. It's like there's something about Mary with my hair. Let's fix this before we continue. All right. So what I showed is a very simplified template of that, but we can really pull your P&L. We can pull your numbers into this, and we can give you insight into your business very quickly to at least get you on the right track. And so if you think that you know your numbers or you don't think that you know your numbers, shoot me a message. More than happy to reply. Shoot me an email and I will get back in touch with you. This is something that we can crunch pretty easy for your brand and get you on the right path. That is the main expenditures in your business is going to be your advertising and marketing or affiliates, everything that's kind of rolled into that, which is your customer acquisition cost. And so you can see how powerful this is when you're looking at customer acquisition cost and not ROAS, when you're looking at customer acquisition cost and not MER. Those both have their places, but they're not as effective as translating into what month are you going to be profitable based off of your customer lifetime value. And without the financial foundation of knowing your margins, you're going to be completely lost. So I hope you found this helpful. If you have any questions about your numbers, drop a comment here, shoot me an email. I'm more than happy to get on a call with you and to just run through your numbers and chat and see if I could provide value to you. Once again, Jared, D2C Wealth. We'll talk soon.